Many people have preconceived ideas of what a migrant might look like. People tend to think that they're young, they've come here to look for work, they may be dependent on the welfare state, and they may be bringing their families with them, or indeed have large families. Our project used data from the 2011 census to look at the characteristics of EU migrants living in the UK to shed light on the debate. We found that 86% of those in the census were born in the UK, meaning just 14% were born outside of the UK. And looking at those born in the European Union, these constitute just 5% of the UK population in 2011, which is just around 2.5 million people. If we look at where those EU migrants have come from, just under half are coming from the countries of the new European Union. Those are the countries that joined after 2004. And just over half came from countries of the old EU. And if we look a little bit further, around a quarter of EU migrants were actually coming from Poland, making them the largest single group of EU migrants living in the UK. The second largest group was actually the Irish, constituting 16% of all EU migrants, and the third largest group were Germans. EU migrants tend to be younger than the UK-born population, and in fact 2/3 aged between 16 and 60, which is the prime working age groups. This, however, means that a smaller proportion are children or older people, those groups that we might think traditionally having a larger call on the welfare state. EU migrants are much more likely to be employed than UK-born people, with over 2/3 being employed. And when we look at the education of EU migrants, we actually find that they're much more highly educated than the UK-born population, with nearly 1/3 having a degree or higher professional qualification. And only 1/5, in fact 18% of EU migrants have no qualifications, compared to 24% of the UK-born population of the same age group. Employment and education don't necessarily transform into a higher socioeconomic group, and in fact a lower proportion of EU migrants own their own home than UK-born population, and they're 4 times more likely to be renting from the private sector. As a demographer, we were really interested in the family position of EU migrants. And EU migrants tend to be they're younger, and a higher proportion tend to be single than the UK-born population. But amongst those who are partnered, 1/3 are partnered with a UK-born partner. And of these, 1/3 have children. This has implications for these families going forward. What will it mean for these families in a post-Brexit world? Will these families be able to stay together, or what will their options be? Will the UK-born partner choose to leave the UK to stay with their EU partner and their children? These are issues that we'll be looking into in greater detail going forward.